Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thanks for tuning in today. I'm glad you're with us. I've got a really exciting episode for you today. We've got an interview here with Marky Lemons Ryle out of the Chicago area. She is born and raised in Chicago. She's been in real estate since 2003. Well, maybe before, so I'll let her tell that story. She is the jack of all trades and general rock star in real estate. She's a keynote speaker. She's the author of the international bestseller Modern Real Estate Professional's Guide to Success. She's also the host of the real estate podcast, Social Selling Made Simple, which I highly, highly recommend. I am so excited to have you here today, Marky. I don't want to give your whole bio because it'll take me the whole time we have. So let's just dig right in and tell us a little bit about your backstory. You know, how did you get into this industry? How's your journey evolved? And what are you doing these days? Because I know it's going to bring a ton of value to our listeners here that are mostly real estate agents.
So I came into real estate in 1999 as a loan originator. I was born and raised in the restaurant business. My family owned Chicago's oldest barbecue restaurant. And for numerous years, we sold more pork rib tips than anyone else. I never thought I would do anything other than sell barbecue for a living. However, my father's sister decided to sue me for the trademark right for our restaurants, and I had to countersue my family. The judge threw out their lawsuit, made them go to mediation on my lawsuit. They end up having to spend some money. But in the meantime, I needed to take care of my son. At the time, I was an unwedded mother, and I was looking to replace my income, but I wanted to earn an above average income and feel like a stay-at-home mom. And I generally have to clarify that. That didn't mean that I didn't think I would work long hours, but I wanted the ability to take Skylar to school, pick him up, and attend all field trips with no problems. And in that time, I became burned out, and I've never really shared this part with anyone. I called myself, I took a sabbatical, and I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, where they taught me the best sales training in the world. But I absolutely hated farm sales, and I don't like to use the word hate. I just did not like pharmaceutical sales. And so I decided to come back in to the world of real estate full time. And I questioned that move because I was an unwedded mother and I was making a six-figure income with a company car and expense account. I'm like, who doesn't like this? Well, I didn't like it. In the meantime, while I was working in farm sales and missing loan originating, I got my broker's license. So when I came back, I decided that I would focus on selling houses and not facilitating loans as much. And it just broke down to the numbers. So I became a realtor in July of 2003. And by the end of 2004, I was in the top 10% of realtors in the city of Chicago, closing roughly $12 million in volume that first full-time year in the business as a real estate broker in 2004. Well, if we look at 2006, I had gone out to be on the board of directors of the Chicago Association of Realtors, that at the time was the third largest real estate board in the country. And I went out in 2004 and I went out in 2005. I was pretty ticked off when they did not select me in 2005. So I called Frank Williams. He was a past president, and I asked if I could take him out. I wanted to get to the bottom of why they weren't putting me on this dang on board of directors. And in that lunch, he told me, he said, baby Dow, there are two things you should do. You should become a licensed real estate educator, and I need you to volunteer more so people will be able to put a face with the name. I took heed to what Frank taught me. I was then put on the board in 2006, and my real estate education career started. And I've been focused solely on real estate education since 2012, with a emphasis on social media and technology.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. That was amazing. And I'm glad you did that and not me, because it just came out a lot more eloquently. So I want to back up to the very beginning here, because one thing that you mentioned, which I think is really worth exploring here, and not where I thought this interview was going to go, but you talked about having an above average income while feeling like a stay-at-home mom. And when you made that transition from a lender to real estate agent and you had that rapid success and found yourself at the top 10%, what did that look like for you? Did you still have the feeling of the stay-at-home mom that you wanted, or did you find yourself caught on the hamster wheel and feeling like you actually weren't getting as much time with Skylar as you would have liked because your business had taken off in such a massive way?
Actually, I still had the feeling because Skylar is very much and was a people's person. So I had given him a job title, and he was the junior assistant to the broker. So he was very proficient in scheduling showing appointments. He wanted me to be successful because he liked having his own money. And we were also rehabbing houses. And he evolved as a child in the real estate business, understanding the interaction because he was a regular staple because he was very well mannered as a child. Now, let me say this, that did change with my second child. And I tell people if my second child would have been my first child, he would have been the only child. But only because their mannerisms are totally different. And so I was still able to do everything that I wanted to do with Skylar because unlike now where I travel and I'm not even in the city of Chicago, I was in the city of Chicago. I was able to plan my schedule and I've always had a calendar. Even in high school, college, I've always planned, I've always carried a calendar with me of some sort. So I was able to still take me to school. I would go on field trips, but I was armed with my mobile device and my checklist of things to do, sometimes two mobile devices. And so it did not, I wasn't overwhelmed in that process. When I found myself overwhelmed was actually later. And it was because I was doing too many things in real estate. And I read the book, The One Thing. And from that book, I took a couple of quotes that just they're still with me till this day. And one was be like a postage stamp, stick to one thing until you get there. And so what I decided to do was to not rehab houses anymore, not teach all classes, only teach classes that have a technology component to it. So I find myself year after year taking more things off of my calendar so that I can have more time to be very niched and focused. And the more niched and focused I become, the more financial freedom I'm able to explore. But it actually frees up more time to spend time with the family.
So I could not agree more with everything you just said. And I want to I want to ask you two questions here and really kind of your advice for the listener. When you talked about you always had a calendar, I was going to ask you about that. Like, how did you schedule the real estate business into motherhood and all that? Because I think that's a challenge that a lot of people face. And I see a lot of folks that they start to achieve the success and then they find the burnout comes right behind it because with more transactions comes more activities that are associated with those transactions, which means more time and then less freedom, and it all kind of spirals out of control. So, I meet a lot of people in our industry that are just flying by the seat of their pants. They're not scheduling very well, and they're not single tasking or focusing on the one thing or eliminating. They're just adding, adding, adding. So, what's your advice there? Like, how did you have that aha moment? Like, where was the turning point for you where you realized that subtracting is better than adding?
Well, I guess when I became unhappy, and as I tell people, my money was funny, my energy was zapped, and I realized I wasn't spending enough time with my husband. And so the children got their time, but the spouse didn't. Um, and so I was not happy, and I'm like, oh, if I have to keep living my life like this, then I need to probably find something else to do. But if I take a look at it, when I read The One Thing, I started soul searching for those times in my life that I earned the most amount of money with the fewest headaches. And every time in life that I've earned the most amount of money with the fewest headaches, it was because I was laser beamed focused on one thing. So I had great success in the restaurant business when I only did the restaurant business. I had great success when I was only focused on residential sales, which is why I made it to the top 10% basically my first full time year as a broker. And so I was searching for those happy points with few headaches. And then I said, oh, well, you've put A, B, C, D on your calendar. How does this let's go with start with the end in mind. How does this get me there? And I realized that we consistently add things that don't get us to the goal. And so I said, okay, I need to take some of this stuff up off of my calendar because it is one, it's not a part of the business plan. Let's just start. So right now, people need to business plan. And if it's not a part of the business plan, they shouldn't do it. The next thing is everything is not going to serve you equally. So that means I'm not going to make the same amount of money from all my activities. I have another little quote that I live by. It is okay, especially for us as women, to earn the most amount of money per hour working the fewest hours possible. So I'm consistently looking for that sweet spot. How do I maximize my time? And if it's not a part of maximizing my time, I take that off the calendar. I read something recently. It says that we should do one thing for work, we should do something as a hobby, and then we should do something that includes physical activity. So that's three things. Anything outside of these three things, right? We probably need to re-examine them, because you cannot, or you do not want to be all things to all people, because now you start to basically devalue yourself.
Yep. 100%. It's so interesting to hear you say this, and I really appreciate your candor with this, because I love when we have the opportunity to really sort of expose the raw and the real behind the scenes, because a lot of people look at someone who's successful or is achieving something that they aspire to have in their lives, and all they see is everything looks amazing for that person, but behind closed doors, a lot of times we're falling apart because we haven't figured out how to prioritize. We haven't figured out how to business plan. We haven't figured out how to create a schedule for ourselves and to honor that schedule, right? Which defeats the whole purpose of the freedom and flexibility we were seeking when we went out after self-employment, right? So it's funny because when I had my burnout and I almost quit the business, I started selling Arbonne. I was pregnant with my second child, like skincare. And I mean, that's like the craziest thing. But I remember being advised to not quit, and to, I decided going into the next year to work smarter, not harder. And you talked about being laser focused. And I remember being like, I'm going to be a sniper rifle, like just cut the fat. I love that. I love that. You just like hit all that on the head. So I want to ask you now, because you have so much going on, right? You've published an international best-selling book. You have a podcast. You travel and speak. You also still have an active real estate license and an active real estate business. So talk to me a little bit about how you navigated those transitions where you were adding to your plate, and how did you figure out how to subtract when it came to your involvement in your real estate business without quitting and throwing the towel altogether because you were burning out?
Okay, so then that's a lot. When it comes to the podcast and the book, everything that I'm doing is to build more credibility as a speaker. And then how do I maximize basically my rate as a speaker because I've done these other things? So the first thing was I teach a lot of social media and technology courses. So I actively engage with social media and technology every single day. But I did not have enough time to basically produce my own podcast because other things would get in the way. So I hired a company, a podcast production company, where I record the video and they extract all the content from there, and they make sure that they are publishing the podcast. They write my weekly blog post. They send out my weekly email. So I hired essentially a marketing company to oversee that part. Well, Matt Johnson from Pursuing Results, who is my podcast host and producer, he asked me if I wanted to write a book. I said, well, yeah, that's been on my to-do list for years. He says, well, I have a publisher who can help facilitate that for you. And so I said, okay, well, give me the publisher's name. He gave me the publisher's name. The publisher charged more money than what I wanted to spend, but I knew that I needed the book, and that if I wrote the book, I would be more credible, even though I'm credible as a person, but it's the overall credibility that a book brings to any individual. And so I hired him as a publisher to facilitate that process, because I knew I didn't have the 320 hours that they said that you need. So for me, all of the things that I'm doing, I've actually brought on help to assist in those things, because my number one goal, none of this happens unless I am speaking to people. So if I was to look at my bread and butter, not the icing on the cake, not those other forms of income, it's going to come from speaking. And in doing so, people tell me all the time, I know that based on the subject matter that I teach, I can make substantially more money if I was to just speak to entrepreneurs, or if I was to speak in different sectors. I work Real estate is probably 95% of my speaking engagements. 5% is promotional products. I'm clear who hires me. I'm clear what committees meet in order to hire me. I am a part of those committees. I am a realtor at the core. I volunteer, I'm a major donor, all inside of the world of real estate. So I understand that niche, the nuances, the language, the acronyms of it, and I am engaged in it A through Z, with the exception of commercial real estate. Don't know a lot about commercial side of the business. Um, and so I can own that niche, and I have no desire to speak outside of the industries that I'm speaking in. Do I speak to lenders? Do I understand the language? Yeah, I was a licensed loan originator for quite some time, is how I came into the world. And the only way I talk to them is because I'm helping them to build their realtor relationships in order to generate more leads. So everything is very niche, but it all supports the speaking business.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really blown away by your determination and willingness to do the things that will ensure that you achieve the time freedom and financial freedom that you're after. Because I feel like so many people in our industry get stuck with the fear of, I can't hire somebody. What's it going to cost me? What if my business falls down? And it's like they're paralyzed by fear. So they just stay stuck on that hamster wheel. So when it comes down to delegating, hiring, overcoming the fear of referring your business out. I mean, you worked your butt off to become the top 10% by being an amazing real estate agent, I'm sure. And now you've got 15 agents on your team, we talked about before, that you're delegating out to. So my question is, how early on in your journey in real estate did you embrace the idea that it will be better for me to hire someone to do this than waste my time doing it myself?
Oh, I just realized that. To be honest with you, it's I would probably say the last 5 years is when I decided to hire, to let go. I definitely had big time control issues. And it took some time. And let me say this: not only did I have control issues, and I probably still have some control issues, I was still dealing with, and I just made a post about this, PTSD as a result of the real estate crash.
Sure.
So I lost financially everything at the same time that my mother died from a brain aneurysm. My grandfather died from Alzheimer's disease. Was a high risk pregnancy solely based on my age, but then I fainted on an airplane in that pregnancy. I was disconnected from the financial loss. So I'm just coming out of having the fear of taking those same bold, audacious steps that I was taking before the crash of the real estate market. And with getting over those fears, right, is the ability to delegate and let go of control.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, that's amazing that you had to go through all of that personally amidst, the financial ruin or whatever you want to call it. I mean,
But you know what? I never even realized the financial ruin until well after the fact, because I was so disconnected based on the personal loss. So it's kind of like the personal loss probably mentally saved me from the financial ruin because I was disconnected as a person.
Sure, sure. So when it comes to this, it sounds like you're very intentional with honoring what is going to serve you and your happiness, your relationships, your business, and all things. So what advice do you have to somebody who is struggling with that and is just doing too much? You talked about being super niched and super focused, but a lot of times I feel like that's a scary thing to welcome into your business, because ultimately, if you're hungry for business, you want to just be doing for everyone all the time. And when I hear it more and more and more in this day and age, that being super, super niched is the way to go. And so, what advice do you have to somebody who's just feeling stuck with, like, I want to add everything. I want to add everything because I'm just hungry, hungry, hungry. And really what they need to be doing is eliminating, and getting down to the essential.
Generally, I show them examples. So if I was to go into any real estate market and you were to look at those top, let's say 10 to 25 agents in that marketplace, when locals say their name, they know exactly what their book of business is. And I don't care where that is. That top 25 agents, you know exactly what they do and where they do it. They're not trying to be all things to all people. And I don't care where you are located. So I often use them as an example. I then share my own personal experience, but the latest story that I'm sharing with them is a young lady. She's an agent on my team. Essentially, her first full-time year as a broker. She's doing over six figures this year, and she is a person who loves being all things to all people. And you have to, if you're telling people to do with things, then you have to also set the example for that. And she will jokingly tell everybody, Marky tells me no all the time. I have no problem with telling people no. That is not my book of business. That is not what I do. How is that a win-win for all parties? Because people will see you in their dreams, right? You're going to make their dreams a reality. Well, if I'm going to make your dreams a reality, I want to know, how does doing so aid me in my business, since I'm helping to facilitate? Because if we don't have a win-win for all parties, then it's not going to work. But here's the thing. It could be a win-win. The question is, how does it fit into my current business plan? And I don't mind sharing my business plan with people. So I live by a business plan. I have a calendar. I have those items on the calendar that supports the business plan. I have a paper calendar and a digital calendar. Heck, I'm sitting here at my desk, right? I still keep a journal. I walk around. I got a to-do checklist in here, and also one on this device that syncs with every device. So I'm practicing what I preach. And then there are some people, I just tell them no. They don't want to allow themselves to get out of their own way. Yeah. And I will not allow another person's insanity to invade my space.
I love that. I love that. I talk to people all the time with coaching clients about this idea that you became self-employed for a reason. You wanted to be your own boss. And yet 95% of you are letting everybody else hijack your day from the moment you wake up and roll over and start checking email. And you spend your whole day in reactive mode with no plan, no schedule, no system. And by the way, you're not your own boss. You're literally being bossed around by everybody else who wants your time. So like, this is just very, very important. I hope that people will take this to heart, because it's really powerful.
Let me say one thing, what you just said. Most people in real estate have no idea what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I'm not, I don't want to pierce them, okay? However, there are certain things that as an entrepreneur, all entrepreneurs do. People come into real estate and they anticipate that their broker is going to give them leads. Well, here's the problem with that whole process. I've never seen an independent contract agreement that says that the broker was going to give you leads. So why do you anticipate to get something when you are the entrepreneur? The broker makes money off of your production, not that you make money off of their production. And it's kind of, I don't want to use the word stupid, but I'm going to go with stupid. It would be stupid for me as a business owner who's heavily vested into the world of real estate to give a lead to a new person who has not proven their ability to close a real estate transaction. And even though I could give them that lead and make more money off of that lead, something from nothing is still nothing. So I'm not going to refer my great clients to someone who has the inability to close a deal because they've never proven themselves in the first place. And as a seasoned profession, what I've come to realize is that the real estate pre-license course has never taught anyone how to sell real estate. Mm-hmm. So they don't have the entrepreneurial skills because there's a mental disconnect that as a realtor, you are an entrepreneur. Therefore, you need a business plan that dictates your time and your resources.
Awesome. I could not agree with you more. I feel like you're my spirit animal. So let me ask you this. So obviously you're passionate about this. You have now dedicated the majority of your time and energy to education. And I can tell just from talking with you that it's important to you that people learn these skills of entrepreneurship. I saw something on your website and I wrote it down, The Life of Sales. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I thought that was pretty cool.
The Life of Sales. We're going to actually go to the Miracle Morning. And in that book, they talk about a life of savers, right? But to me, if you're in the world of real estate, you need a life of sales. That means I need to have silence. I have affirmations. I use the Prompter app to do my daily affirmations. You have to have lead generation on your calendar every single day. As a real estate professional, I'll take Monday through Friday if you desire to not work on the weekend. But your business is only, right, is a true reflection of your ability to generate leads. Those that have great abilities make substantially more money. So silence, affirmation, lead generation, exercising, and scripts. Now, scripts have definitely changed since I came into the world of real estate. You know, it used to be cold call and pick up the phone, call people. Then you might have your text scripts, right? For the texters, you might have your email scripts. And now we're essentially taking those scripts and breaking them out into bots. That is automated messaging systems to kind of get that initial contact going and find out what a person is looking for. So I believe that as real estate professionals, we should implement sales into every single morning of our lives. Silence, affirmation, lead generation, exercising, and scripts. And if you do that every single morning, you will see a change in your business, thereby changing your life.
100%. And I would also argue that you'll see a change in your life, in your sense of calm, in your clarity of focus, in your energy, which results in a change in your business. It's like they go hand in hand. And this is so important that you talk about lead gen as a daily activity, because so many people in our industry think that the reactive is their job. And I'm like, your first job is to create the business. Your second job is to nurture it. So first create, every day create, then do all the nurturing, then do all the follow-up and all the reactive. Because if you don't do the lead gen and you don't have the results you want, then what's the point? What are you doing? So I think that's awesome. I love how it's funny because when I read that, I thought, that reminds me of the Savers. So I'm big Miracle Morning fan. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about what you heavily teach on and what you have mastered yourself, which is the social media strategy and leveraging technology. Talk to me a little bit about that, because it's like your sales, your life of sales indicates that the old school traditional processes have not changed. You still need to do lead gen, you still need to build relationships, right? But you can enhance that with technology. And I feel like I read a quote on your website about this.
Let me say this. You might have read a lot of quotes. So I am not a technology native. I let everyone know that in 2020, I will turn 50 years of age. So it does not come natural to me. I forced myself to use technology, and it was strictly a business decision. In 2006, I was at home on maternity leave with my youngest son. I was then reading the 2006 profile of buyers and sellers from the National Association of Realtors. It told me that in 1995, 2% of buyers were utilizing the internet as a source of information in the buying and selling of real estate. However, when I was at home on maternity leave with my youngest son, Austin, that number was 80%. And so, I did a little math. I'm like, that's a 78% difference. I haven't seen the 78% increase in nothing. How do I get that in my life? And I decided to Google my name because I believed that I had a online presence. I had a website. I was popular in the Chicago land area on the South Side, especially. I had bus benches and I had billboards, and I was doing a direct mail piece every single month. And I had a classified ad that ran in the back of the Sun Times every single day. However, when I Googled my name came up less than 10 times. And I realized I wasn't hanging out online where we saw this humongous increase in buyers and sellers utilizing it as a resource. So I said to myself, I'm going to definitely have to build my online presence. And every single day I've been committed actually since then to learning something new because I knew I did not know. I knew that it didn't feel natural to me. But then I also looked at our millennials and I took in consideration when I plan to retire. So I am going to retire at the age of 63. So I have 13 more years to work. And I'm retiring at that age because my husband's a locomotive engineer. He will retire at 65. He's 2 years older than I am. And I will receive a spousal funded pension plan from the railroad. And so if I'm going to retire at 63, do I want to try to learn these skills later, or did I want to implement them at that time so that I would have the ability to communicate with the biggest or largest consumer generation ever in history, right? Which are millennials. And at the time that I retire, those millennials will make up that very large percentage of not only buyers, but also sellers at that time. So it was a strategic business decision to implement technology and force myself to learn it.
So this is a really powerful thing that you're covering here, which is it didn't come naturally. You made a strategic business decision and you forced yourself to learn it. That level of discipline is admirable, and I feel like it's overlooked a lot. Like, well, it doesn't come naturally to me, so I'm just not going to bother doing it, and then people are missing the boat. But one question I have for you is that in the last 5 years, you say you've taken on the idea that I should delegate and I should hire and all these other things. So when you say that it doesn't come naturally, it didn't then, but it does now, right? Because you
It
forced.
does.
And how did that transition come to be? I mean, I think some people question, do I need to do it myself or could I delegate my social media? But I think your branding is so personal to you. So
My branding is personal to me, and I own the face of the company. So the question you just asked is a consistent question, right? Now, I believe in video content, which definitely did not come natural to me. Um, you still need to be the face of the content. So I was on a call earlier today, and the joy of this person has a phenomenal YouTube channel. She creates the video, but she outsources all of the editing. She outsources the audio to text transcription, kind of like what I do with my podcast, right? So I'm recording once a week and they're taking it and they're putting it all these different places. You still need to be the face of the content. And I personally believe that content should be that of video, and you can have someone to edit it, repurpose it, take photo quotes, do your audio to text transcription, all of that. But you need to sit down as a real estate professional and create content every single day for the purpose of lead generation. So I don't outsource. I outsource a lot, but I'm still the person who you see in every single video, and I create video content every single day.
so nowadays, when your primary focus is building your speaking career and you've got your real estate business being handled by team members that you specifically refer the deals to based on who they are and where they focus their business. Um, what is how's the content changed? Is your content educational focused towards realtors or is it focused towards the consumers, the buyers and sellers?
Both. And so the reason that I'm able to do referrals is because consumers still see me in the community creating video that resonates with them. What I would say I do a very good job is identifying the problem of people on the south side of Chicago. So once again, very niched. I don't talk about luxury real estate. I don't talk about jumbo mortgages. I talk about the problems of the Chicago South Side, and I have a solution for those problems. And so I do very personal videos, but I also will come and I will interview a lender and we will talk about how to create sweat equity. We'll talk about non bankable loans. We'll talk about how to put together up to $19,500 in down payment assistance programs. You kind of get the idea, but
Yeah.
I personally interview these people and I turn it into a sales funnel. So I have a call to action. I have a link to a landing page. I have an item of value in exchange for the information. Therefore, I have the leads to refer to the people. So I talk because people see me as a realtor, they understand that I'm a realtor and I'm very active. What people know is that I am the referrer. And my friends and my sphere of influence, they could have seen me post on Facebook. They know that this Thursday I will be in Detroit. I can get a text in Detroit and it says, Marky, I hear you're in Detroit. I don't know if you know so and so, but I'm looking to buy real estate. Do you have someone you can refer me to? And
Perfect.
so people have come to trust me. And because they don't know a lot about the process, they want me to refer them to somebody who I trust.
Now, one thing that you just mentioned that's kind of it can make somebody's head spin a little bit is that you mentioned sales funnels and landing pages, and I know that that makes me go a little cross-eyed because it's overwhelming, right? Like if you're someone listening and you're actively selling real estate and then you hear things like that kind of terminology, it just feels so overwhelming, goes over your head. So, how much of that did you learn to develop yourself, and how much of that did you delegate?
Everything that I delegate, I know how to do, so I can delegate it effectively. So I don't have anyone working for me that I don't understand the process of their job to tell them how to do it. So everything that my podcast producer does for me, I was doing it for myself. I wanted a more polished, efficient look, and I wanted to hold someone accountable for that process. So I hired him. Even with my publisher, a lot of the things that he knew, I already knew, but now I go and I'll ask clarifying questions. So he's educating me in that process. So I knew how to create my own sales funnels. And what I do is I teach realtors how to do what it is that I do, not based on theory, based on the fact that I have taken the time to learn the process to show them the ins and outs of everything. So I probably should have started with I do not teach theory in my courses. I don't make recommendations for tools that I don't personally use. So every single thing that I'm talking about, I actually implement and I can show them the back end, the numbers. How did we get here? How does this plug into there? Because I'm using all of these tools. If I ever decided that I wanted to actively sell real estate, like open doors, I can insert myself right back into the market and there won't be any disconnect with the brand because people are still communicating directly with Marky.
Awesome. And then in your courses, are you teaching agents specifically on what kind of content is actually attractive? Because, you go on Instagram and you see the just listed, just sold, it's like, oh God, it's painful. And then you go to someone else's page and you're just drawn in immediately to their authenticity, their personality, and you like them as a person and you know what they do for a living, and therefore the trust is being built. So do you work specifically with how to come up with your content, your avatar, whatever it might be, so that you can develop content that is totally uniquely you?
Yes, and I would say content creation is probably one of the hardest things for an agent to do. I don't spend a lot of time on the content creation aspect because I believe that they should do live videos. I believe they should be out in the community. I believe that they should interview people. And I'm having a problem with people getting over the fear of video because they're so caught up in how their perceived or perception of how they believe that they look. I focus more on the how to, the sales funnel, and the ability to listen. But here's I guess my problem or disconnect with the content creation. If you had a business plan and you understood who your potential clients are in your marketplace, it would help you in creating the content that resonates with them.
Yeah.
So it's always coming back to this one thing that I need people to create that they don't want to create, and that is a business plan. And the reason that I've been successful is because I've always had a business plan and I'm clear who I need to talk to in order to be hired. I always know who the check writers are, is what I call it. And so my content is resonating with those people because I understand who they are, because I was willing to put that time in to research who that person is who's willing to do business with me. And unless we get that business plan done, everything else is going to be ho hum in the whole process. And I can't get enough people to create the business plan. So, as I tell agents all the time, I will teach you how to do everything that I do. If not, I'm going to do what it is that I told you I was going to do. And then I will send you a referral. And in exchange for that referral, I want a percentage of your earnings.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time today because you've already shared so much, and it's obvious that you are a wealth of knowledge. So I'm sure that the listeners are going to want to consume more of Marky Lemons Ryle. So tell the listeners how they can follow you, find you, all the good stuff.
I jokingly say this, but it's 100% the truth. If you spell my name correctly, you will find me everywhere online. That is Marki, Marki, Lemons, Lemons. If you spell them correctly, you will find me Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest. I'm also the author of the international bestseller, The Modern Real Estate Professional's Guide to Success, and the podcast, which is a top ranked popular podcast, Social Selling Made Simple.
Awesome. Well, I love it all. Thank you so much. We covered so much, and I feel like we could go on for hours, but I'm going to let you get on with your day. And thank you so much for being on the show today, Marki.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And for all you Pursuing Freedom friends out there, as always, I implore you, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to go down to wherever you can leave a review on the app where you're consuming this content and help us continue to attract awesome guests like Marki and help get this content found to keep you going on your journey. I wish you continued success and, more importantly, happiness. I love and appreciate you. Have an awesome day.